I pulled into the driveway just as I heard Anna scream. Two men in fake HOA uniforms were standing at our front door shouting about unpaid violations and demanding $5,000 on the spot. When Anna told them to show proof of their authority, one of them slapped her across the face hard. That slap was the biggest mistake of their lives. Everything after that happened in a blur. I remember the sound of the hit, the way her head snapped to the side and the blood starting to trickle from her lip. I remember my pulse dropping into that slow, focused rhythm I hadn't felt since Afghanistan. I didn't think, I just moved. One twist, one strike, and 30 seconds later, both of those frauds were on the ground, moaning and bleeding on my porch. But the real story didn't start there. It started a few hours earlier with a shaky phone call from someone pretending to be Diane Foster from our HOA office. Anna had been home that morning while I was still at work. She called to say we'd been randomly selected for a compliance audit, something about a new vendor program the HOA was testing. The email looked official enough at first glance, but even from my phone I could see something was off. Typos, mismatched fonts, and a phone number that didn't even belong to our area. I spent 10 years in military intelligence. My brain automatically logs inconsistencies. Anna's gut is even sharper. She started digging. By the time I hit traffic heading home, she'd already called the real HOA president, checked the employee directory, and confirmed there was no such person as Diane Foster. "Henry," she texted me, "these HOA guys are fake. They're not on any official record." When I got home, they were already there, two men with clipboards measuring our fence like they owned the place. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound calm. "My wife mentioned something about a compliance inspection. Can you show me the authorization?" The tall one, Marcus, shifted his stance like a man expecting confrontation. The other, Tony, didn't even bother pretending. "We're just following procedure," he said, tapping the top of his clipboard. "You've got perimeter violations. Initial penalties start at $5,000. But if you cooperate, we can keep this off the record." The line sounded practiced, too practiced. I could smell the scam under his cologne. Anna stepped outside, then phone in hand, and said evenly, "I already talked to our HOA president. She's never heard of you or this inspection. You two should probably leave before I call the police." They froze. Marcus's eyes flicked to Tony, who gave this tight smile like he was deciding whether to bluff or bail. A few seconds later, they retreated down the driveway, muttering about reviewing our file. That should have been the end of it. But the next morning, they came back with new papers, higher numbers, and a completely different attitude. Anna opened the door before I could stop her. "We need payment within 48 hours, Marcus said sharply. "Your property's been flagged as a priority case. Failure to comply means seizure. You have no authority here," she shot back, holding up her phone. "I spoke to the real HOA yesterday. You're running a scam and I have proof." Tony's expression cracked. He lunged forward, tried to grab her phone, and when she pulled it back, he swung. That's when I reached the door. The sound of that slap hit me harder than any gunfire ever had. I didn't think. I grabbed Tony's wrist mid-swing, twisted, and drove my elbow straight into his gut. He folded instantly. Marcus tried to step in, and I caught him with a clean strike to the jaw. The porch railing cracked when he hit it. "Please tell me you got that," I shouted to our neighbor Bob, who stood frozen across the street, phone raised. "Every second," he said. The cops arrived minutes later. Officer Rivera was first on scene. She kept her hand on her holster until Anna showed the footage, the fake badges, the slap, everything. Within an hour, paramedics were treating the two imposters, and we were filing our statements. That should have been closure. But when one of their wallets fell open on the porch, we found IDs, real ones. Police badges from 3 different states. Stolen identities. This wasn't a simple scam, it was organized crime. Anna and I traced the receipts from the equipment they'd used, cheap measuring tools, fake documents, and uniforms bought from a local shop. The owner, Betty Carter, nearly broke down when we asked. "They scared me," she said. "Paid in cash, told me I'd lose my business if I talked." She handed over a stack of receipts, bulk orders labeled HOA Enforcement. Those led us to a name, Jake Morgan, owner of a company called Community Solutions, LLC. A slick front claiming to offer regulatory compliance support for residential communities. It had a website, licenses, and glowing testimonials, all fake. Anna, being Anna, found more. One of the fake officers' phones had auto-synced to a cloud account. She pulled the data. Texts between Tony Marcus and someone labeled LP. Miller House tomorrow. Standard intimidation. Collect or escalate. LP says target veterans they follow rules. LP. Those initials made my stomach drop. Our HOA president's name was Leah Parker. I didn't want to believe it. Leah had welcomed us with cookies when we moved in. She'd helped Anna find a good local vet for our dog. She hosted neighborhood potlucks, but the evidence didn't lie. Bob, our neighbor, the retired lawyer, helped us set a trap. The plan was simple. Draw Marcus back, get him to call Jake, and catch both in the act. We met at the park with half the neighborhood quietly filming. When I told Marcus he was under citizen's arrest for fraud and assault, his face went white. He dialed Jake immediately. Code red. Jake barked through the phone. Abort everything. Get out. Marcus tried to run, but Bob's walking group blocked the exits. The cops arrived in minutes and took him in. For a moment, I thought we'd finally won. Then that night a rock shattered our living room window. A note wrapped around it said, "Stop digging or you'll regret it." An hour later, I found an envelope slid under the door. Inside were photos of Anna, her commute grocery runs, even her sister's house. The last page read, "We know her routine better than you do." That was the moment the fear hit me. Not anger, fear. For the first time since I'd left the Navy, I felt powerless. I started questioning everything. Was I making this worse? Should I have let it go after the fight? Maybe we were inviting danger by pushing too far. But then Anna looked at me, her cheeks still bruised from Tony's slap, and said quietly, "If we don't stop them, someone else will go through this." That's what flipped the switch back on. I wasn't fighting for revenge anymore. I was fighting to protect everyone they'd hurt and everyone they'd planned to. The next day, Jake Morgan walked into my office like he owned it. Expensive suit, calm, smile, eyes that never blinked. "We need to talk Sergeant Miller," he said, stressing my old rank like it still meant he had power over me. Then he listed off personal details, my deployments, our anniversary date, Anna's sister's address on Pine Street. Information no outsider could possibly know. "You've got a nice life here," he said, leaning back. "Would be a shame if poor decisions ruined it. Walk away now. Stop asking questions. Everyone stays safe." I realized then how deep this went. He'd been feeding off HOA data the same confidential forms residents submitted about their homes, families, finances, and Leah Parker had given him access. I told him I wasn't backing down. He smirked, stood up, and said, "Then I guess I'll see you on the news." That night I did. A video surfaced online, me attacking the fake officers, cut to look like I was the aggressor. No context, no slap, no scam. Just a violent veteran losing control. It nearly broke me. But Betty, the uniform shop owner, came through again. Turns out she used to work in digital media. She analyzed the footage and proved it was doctored, mismatched shadows, wrong timestamps, overlaid audio. Once the real footage went public, everything flipped. Veterans groups picked up the story. Other families came forward, 12 of them, all victims of the same compliance audits. We organized a massive HOA meeting at the community center. Over 60 people showed up. I stood at the front with charts bank records and receipts. I laid out every connection, how Jake Morgan's company funneled money to someone inside the HOA. How 4 foreclosed homes had been quietly bought by the same person at below market value. Then I said it, that person is Leah Parker. The room erupted. Leah, sitting in the front row, tried to stay calm. "We shouldn't make accusations without proof," she said, her voice trembling. Bob stepped forward, holding printed messages from the police investigation. "Proof enough for you?" he asked, reading aloud. "LP. Target the veterans first, they give up faster. LP Martinez. Wife's heart is failing. Push harder. LP Miller's getting too close. Escalate to property damage." The silence after that was heavy enough to choke on. Leah's face drained of color. She tried one last excuse, said Jake had blackmailed her, that she didn't know he'd resort to violence, but Bob showed the transfer records, $30,000 from Jake's company to her personal account. Betty pulled up property records. Leah had bought 4 houses in the neighborhood, all from families forced to sell after fake violations. Each case she'd helped ruin had made her tens of thousands in profit. "You sat in my kitchen," one neighbor shouted. "You brought flowers when my wife was in the hospital, and you were the reason she was there." Leah's hands trembled as the cops stepped forward. She looked at me and whispered, "You think this ends with me? You have no idea how deep this goes." Maybe she was right. Maybe the rot ran deeper than our little HOA. But in that moment, seeing her led away in handcuffs, I didn't care about the rest of the network. For once, justice was real, visible, undeniable, earned. The crowd erupted as the officers guided her out the door. I didn't cheer. I just stood there watching the same woman who'd shaken my hand when we moved in now hide her face behind it. And that's where the story ends. They thought a couple of fake badges and threats could make us submit. They forgot some of us spent years fighting real enemies. And we don't back down from the fake ones.